Emergency interest rate cuts in China with massive liquidity injections have now been announced. As a direct response to the trade talks in the USA, China and the USA are meeting, and they want to create a better negotiating position by lowering interest rates. Also, hold on tight. The next strategic Bitcoin reserve in the USA is now 99% through. That means we have the first strategic Bitcoin reserve. I've already said it will become easier for other countries as well. According to Dennis Port, there is now a 99% chance that the next strategic Bitcoin reserve will also go through here. Guys, you absolutely have to hit the like button now so people don't miss out on what's happening here. I've been announcing it for a very, very long time. The Valhalla candle, is charging up. And it looks like we're heading towards Valhalla here, maybe a bit exaggerated. But it definitely looks very, very crazy here. Fred Kruge posts here. In the morning we're at 100,000 US dollars. And here in June we're at 125,000 US dollars. This could all happen here within hours. I just casually watched a documentary about how people in Germany are now living in EC because they can no longer afford houses. And now the market is going completely crazy here. Absolutely intense. Also, smash the likes for everyone who missed the Bitcoin train and now have to live in EC because they no longer have purchasing power here, as they are simply being inflated away by the central banks. That will also be very, very interesting. We still have the Fed meeting today. Now there are also questions here about whether this could potentially influence the Fed if interest rates are lowered in China, but we'll take a look at that shortly. We also see here, this is really crazy now. James Von Stratton is posting 300,000 US dollars per Bitcoin. By the end of June expiration, these are now the second most popular call options with a nominal value of almost 500 million US dollars. So people are going completely crazy now, buying options, because they think the Bitcoin price could skyrocket to 300,000 US dollars by June. We also see that in the betting markets, like Kaleshare and so on, the probabilities for higher prices well over 130,000 US dollars this year are now getting higher and higher. Josh Mendel, who correctly predicted the correction here, I also made a video about it, where everyone was amazed. He predicted the Bitcoin price exactly to the cent on the exact day and hour. I think he predicted it at 76,000 US dollars or something like that. He now says it is quite justified to doubt the probability that Bitcoin will reach the $444,000 mark in this cycle. But when Metcalfe's law beats Murphy's law, everything that can happen with Bitcoin will happen. And that could be exactly what's happening here, as he suggests. Metcalfe's law meets Murphy's law here. And we've seen this often in the past. Bitcoin has always broken out when no one expected it. And the best part is, this is the best news today. We will all get hot girlfriends, as promised, except for the Bitcoin ladies. The Bitcoin ladies will get a nerd, because all Bitcoiners are nerds. So probably better news here for the men than for the women. And I don't know a Bitcoin nerd with 200 Bitcoin isn't all that bad either. And now we have this crazy story. Dennis Porter says there's a 99% chance that the next Bitcoin reserve strategy is coming soon. Or rather, a reserve strategy law, one should say. Guess which state will be the next to pass the strategic Bitcoin reserve law? And now the question goes to you. Who will announce the next strategic reserve? So Dennis Porter says he has already received the news. He clearly states here that he already knows, with 99% certainty, what the answer is. He also posted again that the likelihood of multiple states passing laws for a strategic Bitcoin reserve has increased significantly today. And I even mentioned that in my video last night. I said, hey, the first reserve law has now passed. Now it's just a formality for the next laws to pass. And presto, the next day, the next reserve is already here. It hasn't been announced yet, so it's not official. But Dennis Porter already has the information. And write your guesses down below. I'm going to give my guess now about who I think will play the whole game here. We can see that New Hampshire is already at the top. Then we have Arizona, which failed. Now we have some very, very strong candidates. It will be one of these two, North Carolina or Texas. That means these are the next candidates that are up next. I think the one underneath is Alaska, but they are a bit further behind. So it will probably be in North Carolina or Texas. And Texas is also known as a mining stronghold. We also know that the governor of Texas or the senator from Texas is a Bitcoin miner and Bitcoin maximalist, and so on. So I consider Texas to be very, very high up here. If I had to guess, I would probably lean more towards Texas than North Carolina. But those are my two favorites. And now comes the big print. Money printer go, BRR. Let's fucking go. China to cut key interest rates by 10 points. Bank reserves requirement by 50 points. So here the main. Interest rates are being lowered by 10 basis points. And the bank reserve requirements, or the minimum deposit rates, are being reduced by 50 basis points. And the interesting part is, you can guess 3 times why this is happening and why it's happening right now. This is not a coincidence, because 3 hours before this news was announced, the meeting between Scott Bessent from the USA and China was announced, indicating that a trade agreement is coming, And then the market was initially pumped up because that's obviously great for the markets. And 3 hours later, they announce here that China is lowering the interest rates. And why are they doing this? Very, very simple. Because when they lower the interest rates, they have a greater leverage in negotiations. The lower the interest rates go, the more they can bypass tariffs. There have already been manipulations where they manually adjusted the exchange rates and such. That's also what Donald Trump has always said, that China manipulates the currency and so on, essentially cheating the USA. And this is basically continuing now. China simply devalues its own currency because if the USA imposes tariffs on Chinese products, China can counteract by further devaluing its currency. And so it becomes more attractive again for people from the USA to buy Chinese products, even though tariffs are being added. So it's absolutely crazy what's going on here. You really have to put all the pieces together to understand what's currently happening here. And then we have the FOMC meeting today. And the big question is, okay, what will happen at the FOMC meeting? Will Jerome Powell be influenced somehow by China lowering interest rates? I don't think so. I think nothing at all will happen. He won't let himself be influenced here. Maybe. Internally they'll talk about it a bit. I don't expect it to have a big impact, at least. Not in the short term. In the long term, of course, it will. We also see all signs pointing to money printer go. That means there will be stimulation. Money will be pumped into the market. And it doesn't matter at all, even if the Fed keeps interest rates high. Who cares? China, other markets, the EU, and so on. Everyone is lowering interest rates. And that's additional liquidity for Bitcoin. That's additional pressure from Valhalla here, which can drive Bitcoin upwards. For China, the promise now is stimulate, meaning to boost the markets upwards, or risk stagnation. China still has deflation problems and hasn't really managed to stimulate the economy effectively. They have tried a lot of things, but now they are doing many things at once. We need to take a closer look at this in detail, as this was just a short version. This means we have BRRR, rates reduced by 50 basis points, then the policy rate, down by 10%. Then we have the structural monetary policy rate reduced by 25 basis points, and the personal provident fund loan rate down by 25 basis points. And what's also very interesting is increase the capital market support tools quota to 800 billion. That's billions, so 800 billion yuan. So they are also implementing direct QE packages or stimulus packages. And these stimulus packages are divided into 500 billion yuan for the issuance of new loans to support consumption and elderly care, with the aim of providing key consumer sectors with affordable capital. So the funny thing is, in China, they're now fully opening the floodgates, meaning they're not just printing money or anything like that to stimulate important infrastructure or any very, very important projects. No, they simply give it to the elderly and say, here, consume. They just give it to people and say, here, take the money and buy Coca-Cola, pizza, whatever. Do something with it, but spend the money so that the economy gets going again. So, of course, it's a bit exaggerated. I don't know. It could also be that it goes into elderly care, or maybe they build some buildings with it or something. But if they want to boost consumption here, it sounds to me more like they're doing it in a helicopter money kind of way. That was always a topic of discussion here in China. It's no secret that they wanted to do helicopter money here. Here it is stated that an additional 300 billion yuan will be provided to stimulate technological innovations and industrial technological transformation through specialized reallocation of loans. So that would be what I meant, which makes more sense. What is usually done when money packages are made here? Then they say, well, they give it to some companies, they give it to support banks, they give it, I don't know, to some very, very high technological innovations or whatever. But just distributing it with a watering can like that is actually not the norm. But that's just it. The watering can money is the money that most often actually enters the market. Because if you give it, for example, to some companies or something like that, or to some large projects, then the money often doesn't really reach the market and takes a very, very long time before it is reflected in inflation and so on, before it really enters the cycle. But if you just give it to the people, like the stimulus checks during COVID, and simply say, here, take it and spend all the money, I mean, then it's obvious that it immediately reaches the market and has direct effects on the stock markets, on Bitcoin, and so on. Because on one hand, the money inflates, and on the other hand, part of the money is, of course, also used. At least, the smart ones, they put it into Bitcoin or an asset. We also saw this during the pandemic, how assets surged due to the stimulus checks and all the money printing. What's always interesting is how quickly the sentiment around Bitcoin shifts. That means we are really deep in the bear camp, and people have been writing so much nonsense in the comments over the last few days. Oh, when will it finally start, and blah blah blah, and all the great news, nothing is reflected in the price and blah blah blah, but you just have to wait, and often. That's exactly what the big players want. That's exactly what the big asset managers want, like BlackRock and so on. They sometimes keep the prices down, trying with all mechanisms to keep the prices low, so that people, like you, who then write in the comments here, well, not all 99%, Of course, they are not affected. It's probably just the 3 banana heads who write some comments here and then panic and say, oh, I'm selling again because Bitcoin has been moving sideways for so long and blah blah blah. You need to realize that this is exactly what they want to do. They want to shake you off. They want to make it so boring that you sell your Bitcoin out of sheer boredom. And it's no joke. But people actually do that. People often sell their Bitcoin not out of fear or anything, but simply out of boredom because it just moves sideways for too long. They just want to get rich quickly. They want to go to the moon quickly to Valhalla, whatever. You need patience here. You need to understand the game. You need to have patience. And then you will be rewarded. Patience has always paid off with Bitcoin. That's just how. It has always been in the past. Patience always pays off, even in investing, and in many, many other things. But there's simply no quick way to Valhalla. Valhalla is always so awesome. It just sometimes takes its time. And here, a very, very big compliment to everyone who understands this, who perseveres, and they are usually rewarded. That's just how it is over and over and over again. Yes, and we also have the big Trump announcement. That could still come. Then we have the announcements at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. So quite a bit is coming together now. Guys, write me in the comments below how you currently assess all of this. Are you ready for Valhalla? And if you're not ready for Valhalla yet, I'll put a link below to 21 Bitcoin so you can still increase your Bitcoin position. Super simple. You can just buy Bitcoin here. Be sure to check it out. There are one-time purchases, auto wallet transfers, limit orders, and much more. And with the code Bitcoin Hotel, you can get up to 20% off for a discount on the fees when buying Bitcoin. Guys, see you. Let's fucking go. Until then, peace out.